look at that. Now we do have all things in place. So we're going to take a look at the section by section, the statement of work here that was sent out yesterday. We're going to record it, so we'll post the link for those that were unable to participate today. And we want to be upfront about the fact that we may not have all the answers to your questions today, but this is a new process for us as well, and we are committed to working through any issues together. So let's move on and look at the first page of the statement of work. So you can see that this pilot is the result of legislation that was passed this year, House Bill 20181218In-homePilotsZoomMtg, and this legislation required CDHS and CDE to enter into a collaborative agreement to study the administration of EI evaluations. We developed the interagency agreement through a work group that had representation from both departments. And the interagency agreement, which was sent out to everyone previously as well, so you have hopefully had a chance to see that. The interagency agreement notes several areas of study, and that includes that of in-home evaluations, and that is the focus of this statement of work. This interagency work group is going to continue to meet during the course of this study to review the data that's been collected and to work on the development of recommendations for the ongoing administration of EI evaluations. And these recommendations, as stated in the IA, must be presented to the legislature by June 30th, 2019. Now, we have hired a contractor to gather and review data during the time of the study, and we're also going to gather data through multiple stakeholder engagement activities, and the methodology for those is also being determined by our data contractor. A primary focus of the pilot and the study will be to think about and ascertain the actual time involved and the actual cost of conducting early intervention evaluations, initial evaluations, including child find and service coordination activities, data entry, administrative time, provider and service coordinator time spent at the evaluation, travel and related costs, such as the purchase of evaluation or screening tools. So as you can see, this is a lot of information that we don't have right now. One of the things that became abundantly clear as we started to talk about this was that we had pieces, both CDE and CDHS have pieces of the cost and time involved with conducting evaluations, but we don't really have a broad picture of what that looks like, and that's part of what we hope to do during this study. All the information is going to be collected, and with the end goal of assuring a system of evaluation where families have high levels of involvement and satisfaction with the process. We have encouraged entities other than AUs and CCBs, such as provider entities, to express interest if they would like to participate in the pilot as well. And then CDHS is going to work with these entities to identify their related CCBs and to support their participation. So let's walk through the details in the actual statement of work. As you can see, the period of performance for the statement of work is until June 30th, 2019, or when funds run out. That could happen. If that happens first, then of course we will not be able to support the early intervention in-home pilot any longer. So let's look at the work plan briefly here. Now you're going to notice that what you're seeing on my screen looks a little different from what was sent out, because all I did was remove the last three columns. If you're looking at the work plan that was sent out earlier, you'll see that the last three columns were persons responsible, budget category, and phase. Those are the same for every task. The person responsible is the evaluation entity, the budget category is House Bill 181333, and the phase is the study process. The reason I took those off was just so that you could see a little better what is on my screen. Okay. So if you look through these tasks in the very first column, you'll see that many of the tasks are not new, but they're going to be new requirements for data collection around these tasks. Most of the deliverables in column 3 are directly related to what will be collected to provide detailed information about the true time and cost of conducting EI evaluations. Our contractor will be developing data collection forms that will be completed for each evaluation conducted. These forms will be finalized within 2 weeks. We had hoped to have them ready for this call, but there are a lot of complexities involved with that, so they're not quite ready yet. We also are still in discussion of whether that will be an online collection methodology or a paper collection methodology. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that. Please note that there are tasks specifically related to conducting hearing and vision screening, because that is a part of the initial evaluation. And if you look through the deliverables here, it gives you an overview of the data that will be collected per each evaluation. CCBs and AUs are still going to report the data that is required by the respective departments, in addition to that for the pilot. But we want to note that AUs are not going to be allowed to report evals that they get paid through participation in the pilot into the CDE Child Find data collection system, as that would result in redundant payments. We've made every effort not to be duplicative in the data collection. So for the most part, if information is already collected in the EI data system, we're going to access it in that way to provide that information to our contractors. And then CCBs and AUs will still report data required by the respective departments in addition to that that's being collected through the study. Here's the rest of that. Now, I want to look at key activity B for just a moment here, and that is screening. And you'll see that it says screening if conducted. Entities that participate in the pilot are not required to conduct post-referral screening, so screening that takes place after the referral has been made. But if you choose to do so, those costs are also reimbursable under the terms of the pilot. And data will be collected on those costs and time associated with the screening, just as we're collecting that information for evaluation. Also, additionally, data will be collected such as the results of the screening and whether or not the family chose to move to a full multidisciplinary evaluation. So the reason behind that is we would really like to know, is screening an effective method in reducing children that are not found, that proceed to full evaluation and are not found eligible? Do families choose to proceed to evaluation even if there is no concern identified through screening? So those are some of the reasons that we hope to collect some information on screening. And then I'd like to take a look at the acceptance criteria here. Any entity that participates in the pilot is going to be monitored through CDHS, the Office of Early Childhood, the Early Intervention Program. We'll monitor the progress of the pilots and ensure that the scope of work has been met. Okay, we're going to do some next steps here. So some next steps that you can expect to occur is that each entity that is interested in participation in the EI evaluation in-home pilot has got to let me know. And that includes folks that have already expressed interest. Just reconfirm your interest. Responding does not obligate your participation. What it really means is that we will set up a time to talk, to give you more information, for you to give us more information about what you're thinking about your participation in this pilot, but there is no obligation to participate. Christy and I will schedule the follow-up calls with all those expressing interest. And I'll be sending out a schedule of availability, and people can just, once they've responded that they're interested, can just schedule the call in a time that best meets your needs. The follow-up calls, the focus of the follow-up calls will be to discuss the details of how you're going to implement the pilot as far as you know them. We know that there's some unknowns right now, and it'll include a discussion of the estimated budget that you think you will need to support the desired and required activities under this scope of work. Entities can choose to implement in-home evaluation pilot activities and requirements for all or some of the children referred to early intervention in their catchment area. An example of this might be if a CCB works with multiple AUs and they choose only to implement in-home evaluations with some of those AUs, that's fine. Or if an AU doesn't want to collaborate around that, that's fine too. If an AU is the one expressing interest and they want to implement in-home evaluations with referrals from a certain geographic area only, that's fine too. And we really want to reinforce the importance of this decision-making process being made through collaboration with your partner AUs or CCBs. CDHS is going to collate information received from all entities with intent to participate and inform partner agencies when both an AU and a CCB that share a catchment area have both expressed interest in participation. Purchase orders will be issued with a not to exceed funding amount. That funding amount is going to be developed based on the budget discussions and activity discussions that Christy or I have with those that want to participate in the pilot. Also, because we do have a great deal of interest in this, pilot participation is going to be prioritized in the order that intent to participate is received and as funds allow. Now I'm going to answer a question that I know you guys might have, but we notified you 2 months ago we were interested. Are we first in line? Yes, I have kept track of all of those along with the date that you notified me of your interest. So that will be the date. They're filed by date. Okay. Doesn't mean that you are committed if you committed to participate if you let me know earlier, but I have made note of all those dates. And then once we have the budget figured out and what your pilot activities are going to look like, then we will issue purchase orders, and your acceptance of those purchase orders will note your agreement to adhere to the scope of work for the pilot. All right, so that is briefly an overview of the pilots right now. I am going to unmute folks to open it up for questions, or if we have questions in the chat, I'm going to look at those. Okay, so we have a question in the chat. Will providers conducting the evaluation have to be licensed through CDE to provide the evaluation? Providers that will be, are you talking about CCB providers, I'm assuming? Providers will have to meet state licensure standards, and if they are an AU, they have to meet CDE standards. If they were a CCB, they'll have to meet early intervention personnel standards. There is very little difference between those. I think that's kind of a misconception because we work together with CDE when developing those provider standards.
Hi, Laura. This is Adria from San Juan Bosis.
Hi.
I have a question, which might be obvious.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Since it's education friendly, learning opportunity. So for the budget, is that reflecting the actual, like in place of that allocation that we would get for those evaluations? Is that what we're building the budget around, that estimation of costs based on these certain domains?
Yes. Yeah, so you would not be thinking about what you currently have. It would be a separate source of funding for all activities related to the evaluations that you are performing under the pilot.
Okay.
So you would not access your CDE funds, your ECEA funds for those evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
It does. I just wanted to make sure if we do put together a draft, if we're allowed to apply or move forward, that the budget would also include those back of the house things that you have on those domains. So I just needed to clarify that. Yep. Okay.
They sure do. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. Can CCBs find out which AUs are interested? What I will do is I will let you know if there is an AU in your area that is interested, because we want to support you working together. We had not intended to publish a list of everyone that's interested. Scrolling down here.
Laura, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Yeah, so Jocelyn from Roaring Fork School District is saying
Hi, Jocelyn.
that they currently conduct in-home EI evaluations. I'm wondering how that would affect the purchase order or funding for the study.
Okay, so if you are currently conducting in-home evaluations, if you want to participate in the pilot, what you'll be doing is accessing this other pot of money for those evaluations, and you would have to meet the additional data collection and task requirements as outlined in the statement of work for those evaluations. You wouldn't access your ECEA dollars or report those as ECEA funded evaluation. Chris, do you have something to add to that?
I think the only clarification is that this idea that you have been talking about, Laura, that it's going to be hopefully as reflective of your true costs as possible, and it's very likely to be a higher reimbursement than what it would have been out of ECEA funds.
Absolutely, because things will be, as we said, we want an actual true cost, not just of the evaluation, but we're calling them evaluation activities, meaning what happens from the referral through having enough information to determine eligibility for the child. Okay. We have another question here. How will the cost of service coordination be calculated? That's going to be calculated individually based on our conversations with interested pilots. We don't have a formula that will be applied throughout the state, because we want to take into consideration things that may impact your how service coordination is provided in your community, such as high levels of non-English speakers or extensive travel distances, anything like that. So it's not going to be prescripted. If a CCB decides not to participate in the pilot, will evaluation 45-day category still be available to bill in the Unicorn? Yes, you don't have to. If you don't participate in the pilot, then nothing changes with what you're doing now. The data you collect doesn't change. The way you bill doesn't change. Anything else? You can unmute yourself by pressing *6. Or add questions in the chat. Will there be funding for additional OAEs? So OAEs are what are used to conduct hearing screening. That could be a part of your proposal in your budget when we talk. That could be totally allowable expense. Everything's going to be very individualized, so that's definitely a consideration that we could look at for sure. Could a CCB participate and only do those children with an established condition? No, because that's considered assessment. It's only children that are referred with a developmental concern that would be provided an initial multidisciplinary evaluation. So I'm glad you asked that question, Melinda, because I think that's an important point of clarification to make. We're only looking at those children that are referred because of a developmental concern and for whom eligibility is not known. If we know their eligibility, they wouldn't fall under the pilot. Additional questions? Is everybody emailing me right now while you're listening of your interest?
Yeah.
Everybody's rapidly typing. Okay, I have already had a few. When I sent it out yesterday, I got some.
Laura, I have a quick question. Is CDE or Department of Human Services going to be providing technical assistance on the framework for gathering data?
Yes, absolutely. Our data, our contractor that is working with us to develop those forms will be providing technical assistance on how to complete those forms.
Perfect.
Yep.
And Laura, I think you and I would try to collaborate as much as possible on those calls when TA is requested.
Absolutely. Thank you for stating that, Chris, for sure. If you submit a budget proposal, do you have to move forward? No, you don't have to. You can back out at any time before the purchase order is issued. Once you accept the monies under your purchase order, that would denote your intent to fulfill the requirements of the pilot. Either way, is this the direction that EI is moving, regardless of the pilot and who can utilize funding? Okay, I'm going to answer the first part of that question first. This pilot and the study period up through June of 2019 are for us to collect information to make recommendations as to what the EI evaluation process will look like in the future. So I really am unable to answer that right now because that's why we need this extensive data. And then, Tracy, I'm not sure I understand your who can utilize funding question. If you could clarify a little bit, I can try and answer that. Can we provide a template for budget considerations? Yeah, Christy and I and Chris can work on that. We'll probably just use the basic CDHS template. When would the pilot start? Is it different based on each entity participating? The pilot will start when you have expressed your interest formally, set up a call, developed a prospective amount that you'll need, and be issued the purchase order. So we're hoping that will start in January because we want to have as much time to collect data as possible, but those steps need to be in place before you're considered to actually be actively participating in the pilot. Anything else? Chris, anything to add? Christy, anything to add?
I don't think that I have anything to add. You know, it looks like we might get a couple more chats to come through. I just want everyone to know that we are saving these because we will continue to answer these ongoing. I mean, hopefully you're feeling like you have a better understanding based on this today, but these questions that come up that we haven't already formally answered, we will add to that list of Q&A that's in that accessible Google Doc.
Yeah, I thank you, Chris, because I want to remind folks that we have been sending out communications. Sometimes you're like, this communication doesn't tell me anything. Well, that's because we didn't have anything new to add. But we are sending out communications after every decision is made, and we are adding things all the time to the Google question and answer doc that was shared with you that anyone can access. So you'll notice that there are some new questions we answered in there, and these questions will be added to that as well. Okay, Tracy, she sent me more clarification here. Where is the funding coming from for the evaluations CCBs have already had to do since the shortening of the 45-day timeline? The funding under the pilot will not start until the purchase orders are issued. So we might need to have a chat about this offline.
Laura, this is Christy.
Go ahead.
So Tracy, you're still going to bill for the 45-day, you know, under the 45-day code in the data system. And so those evaluations are going to be covered under the early intervention budget as they always have.
Thank you, Christy.
Laura, I have a question. This is Amy over at San Juan BOCES.
Hi, Amy.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good. So I just have a quick question about the family satisfaction information. So that's going to be that's something that's going to have to be done with every family for each evaluation.
Yeah, we are still in conversation with the data contractor around that, but that we are hoping to be able to collect information or give families the opportunity to provide information for each evaluation. And the reason we want to do that is because that really was one of the primary foci for this bill being drafted in the first place, was to ascertain family satisfaction with the process. They're laughing at me over here. And then Colleen, did that answer your question, Amy?
Yeah, I think so. I see that it hasn't actually been decided what will be used yet, but I was just, I guess, clarifying, we do have, in order to access the funding, we have to do that for every single family that we're doing the in-home eval for. That is the piece
that hasn't been 100% decided.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now. That was our original premise, but we recognize that collecting information from families is difficult, and so we're looking at methodologies that could be easily done by our contractor and would not necessarily always need to be done by the CCB. But I'll tell you, quite frankly, Amy, we haven't quite figured that out because we know that's the trickiest part of data to collect.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure. And then Colleen has a question, when will the wraparound pilots be available? So the wraparound pilots are ready to go out, and so she's talking about another pilot that falls under this bill that is to facilitate closer collaboration and coordination between community resource agencies and children that are referred to early intervention that could benefit from supports in both places. The statement of work is done for that. Christy, do you want to talk a little bit more about when that's going to go out? I know it's in process already.
I think the statement of work for the wraparound pilots has been developed, and it's kind of in our procurement process. And so for those that were interested in the wraparound pilots, we'll be contacting probably within the next, we want all of this to start as quickly as possible, hopefully in January. So we'll be reaching out and communicating with those that have expressed an interest in the wraparound pilots.
Yep. Did that answer your question, Colleen? Do you have an additional question? Anything else?
That's a question. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that if someone was trying to ask a question.
It's Colleen. I was just responding. That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, great. And I will send out a little, when those go out, I will send out just an informational blurb by email to the CCB so you know those have gone out. All right. Mary
Laura,
Morin.
yeah, Laura,
go ahead.
we got 2 more in there. I just wanted to make sure that you saw those.
Okay. Let's do Beverly's first. We will be going on winter break. Does that mean we may be contacted during that time? You're going to set up the schedule for when we'll be contacting you to discuss this, so it's going to be up to you. And then Mary Morin, did a description of wraparound and request for those interested go out to AUs too, or is it only for CCBs? It's actually only for community resource agencies. And they'll be partnering with their CCBs, but it's really focused on targeted to family resource agencies. All right, well, anyone else? Because I'm not seeing anything else coming in on the chat. Are you, Chris?
I'm not, so I'm going to go ahead and save this chat, which will, let us know everyone who was in attendance, so we at least have an idea of folks who are initially interested. And I know the emails are rolling in. And also, I just want to reiterate that some of these questions, if we haven't already formally answered them in that Q&A doc, we'll look through these and see which ones are most immediate and pressing and get those in there and answered.
Yeah, I did want to add one more thing to Mary's question here. The description of the wraparounds and requests for those interested. Yes, those are out for response to family resource centers only, but we will send out a communication to everyone to let you know when those are out. Okay. Remember that you can always email Christy, myself, Laura, Chris, or Heidi with any questions that you might have. We are meeting regularly in our collaborative work group, so we discuss any questions or concerns that have come in ahead of time or in that work group. And know that I will be reaching out to those of you that are expressing interest to set up times to talk one-on-one. That'll be the next step. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for participating today and taking time out of your day. We will stop the recording now, and as soon as this recording is ready to be accessed, I will send out the link to everyone. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday. Hopefully I'll talk to many of you before that, but maybe not.
Thank you.
Thank you.